There's only 24 hours in a day. I got a pair of earbuds and I wish there was a way that I could know just what I want to listen to. There's 150,000 shows that I'm not sitting through. When the world is dark and boring, let us do your exploring. Pod on pod. Pod on pod.
Welcome to Pod on Pod, a guide to the world of podcasts because it's not your daddy's radio. We're your hosts.
I'm Josh.
I'm Joel, and this is Pod on Pod. This week on Pod, we're going to be reviewing a show called Grownups Read Things They Wrote as Kids. That's a heck of a title, Josh.
It is the first problem I have with this show.
I'll say this. I actually sort of like that they own it.
No.
Wait.
I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say. We talk all the time about how titles don't say what they are. And this one, right off the jump, tells you exactly what it is.
I don't need to do an elevator pitch for this show. I don't need to even explain content. You just name the show. Grown-ups read things they wrote as kids.
That is the premise of the show.
Yep.
Right there. So I appreciate that. But last time we recorded, I kind of poo-pooed this show. Like, I don't know if I want to listen to, like, that just seems weird. It seems like an odd thing. So what I did was I went and watched Mortified.
Okay.
Okay? It's the exact same thing, right?
Mortified.
Yeah, so Mortified and Grownups Who Read Things They Wrote as Kids is the exact same concept, and they're both live events, right? So Mortified is a live event. People get up, read from their diaries, read a poem, read whatever they wrote whenever they were in their adolescence, right? And it's a documentary about it. Grown-ups read things that they wrote as kids is the exact same things. These guys get up, they read stuff out of their diary or whatever, right? To a live audience. It's a live show, and it's recorded, captured on audio, and then packaged to go out as a podcast, right? They're the exact same thing.
Now, is Mortified a podcast? I can't find the Mortified podcast.
No, Mortified's not a podcast.
There you go.
It's a documentary. It's the exact same thing. You can't say that. It's the exact same thing. One's a documentary, one's a podcast. The concept, the premise, everything exactly the same. My point is, I had a foundation to work from when listening to the podcast.
Okay. Here would be my question. When did Mortified start? Which, by the way, I guess we should have started this episode with a mea culpa. We did not have a new episode last week. We apologize about that. Real life and jobs got in the way of us getting to the studio. This week, we're going to double up on you in a big bad way. Not only are we doing 2 reviews, but one of those reviews is even going to have 2 versions that'll be available for you to download if you want to check that out. But this episode, we're discussing a show called Grownups Read Things They Wrote as Kids. Now, I'm looking at the About page here, which, by the way, the website is, can you guess? It's grownupsreadthingsttheywroteaskids.com. This show started in 2007. Since 2007, Brave Adults Across Canada. That's the other thing that you should know. This is a Canadian show. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did know that because it has it in the title. It's in all the info on the episodes, but that's not the point. It doesn't matter if it's in Canada or a podcast. It's the exact same concept as Mortified, and Mortified is the exact same concept. I don't care which came first. I'm just trying to give myself a foundation to work from, right?
Sure.
Okay. And turns out it didn't make me feel awkward or embarrassed for these people. I found stuff really enjoyable, funny, poignant, sad. It was cool.
Yeah, it brings a lot of things in, and I don't know. I thought it was a great idea. You and I discussed last week, we both had a little trepidation about the idea of this because we heard a similar thing done on other podcasts where celebrities, people that we already know and love, bring out something from their youth, read it, and then comment on it as they do it. And generally, it's done with a "how dumb was I?" I mean, especially in the case of Kevin Smith. He has made fun of himself as a kid on numerous episodes of Smodcast and other shows. This is not that at all. To me, this is celebrating the naivety, the imagination.
See, I would have thought that it celebrated the sameness, the connection, the oneness that everybody really has, because whenever you're adolescent and you're writing that thing down, right, or you're writing that event down, you're writing your thoughts or your feelings down, you think you're the only one going through it, and that's why you write it down. You have to have a way to express yourself because people aren't going to get it, right? That's one of the reasons you do it. And then whenever you hear these participants reading things about their life that was going on with them and how they felt about it, a lot of the good feeling you get is, wow, man, I felt that same way. Or I can, you can have this instant connection with it.
So every week on Pod, when we review a podcast, the way that we talk about it is we tell you about it by breaking it down into 4 categories. We talk about the content. We talk about the host likability. We talk about production values and audio quality. And then we give you some of our favorite moments, and we rate the thing overall by discussing earbuds. We don't give it thumbs up or stars. We give earbuds here on Pod. So let's start with we've already talked a little bit about the content, but it really says it all. The idea is that they host a live event. A lot of different people take the stage to read from their journals, diaries, childish short stories, things like that. And then Dan Misener, the host, puts those together, the best parts, sort of, along with interviews with the readers. And the idea there is that you get a little bit of context, or maybe you answer, well, what did happen with you and your stepfather that you hated in that thing that you wrote or whatever.
And this is that point right there. I felt like the documentary Mortified did a better job of, because number one, in Grownups, you don't get a lot of backstory as these people are telling their stories. Beforehand, Dan will jump in and kind of give you a little exposition, and then it'll go into the reader, right? Mm-hmm. Well, in Mortified, it was the reader giving the exposition and then giving the reading. And I like that much, much better. Much better that way.
So it's still the writer that reads the article, and you still get an interview with them. Not every single one that you hear in the show, but many of them you get context from their adult selves, interviewed by Dan. Mm-hmm. But the in and the out is conducted by Dan Misener. I don't have a problem with that.
It's abrupt, it's jarring, and it takes you out of these because this show is. Just by the very nature of these people reading something that they wrote that was supposed to be the most secret to them, or something that was importantly. Think about this. Like, you may be an anomaly because you write stuff down all the time. Very few people feel passionately enough or think that something is important enough to write down, to keep as a memory, to keep as a journal, right? Most people don't do that. So whenever these people are sharing that with everybody, that's kind of a moment. And whenever he comes in with the exposition or the in or the outs, it takes you out of that.
Okay, so 2 answers to questions we raised earlier in the show as I'm doing my research here. I had not heard about Mortified before you mentioned it. The documentary, by the way, is called Mortified Nation.
Yeah, well, it's a live event. Like there's
the live events are called Get Mortified, and that's the name of the website too, getmortified.com. Their Facebook page, at least, holds that they were founded sometime in 2007, which would make it basically the same time as the Canadian Grownups reading things they wrote as kids. I'm just going to say, not having seen Mortified, although it does seem that they have a podcast now as well. You can find them, The Mortified Podcast.
I wouldn't be surprised. It's the exact same thing.
All right, so there's a flavor for everybody here then, but let's talk about the show that we actually reviewed as opposed to the show that you found that was like it.
Right, but I think it's important to put that out there because there's going to be people who maybe have seen Mortified and haven't
have that context.
Right, so you have that context, you have that foundation.
All right, so let's talk then about host likability. Let's move to that. We got Dan Misener here with Grownups Read Things They Wrote as Kids. This dude's got as the Weekly Planet said about our show, a sweet Jesse Thorne voice. He's got a very very classical radio voice.
100% agree. I guess I didn't. Obviously he's the host, but I always felt like each reader was a host and not just a participant.
I understand that idea. Yeah. I look at him as a curator,
right.
I mean, and it's not himself necessarily throwing these events, hosting the events, but the idea is that these events happen, everybody comes together, and it's very communal. Being in the room is one experience.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe Mortified captures that a little bit more than Grownups Read Things They Wrote as Kids. What I like about this show is we talk a lot about rambling nature of a lot of podcasts,
Yes.
the freewheeling nature of the form. People take advantage of that sometimes to their own detriment. I think this is a good example of keeping it tight. He
Yes.
gets to the very heart of the story, and you don't need all of that 15-minute reading that they might have done. You need 2 minutes in the middle where she told you the important thing about the way that she felt about her family, or the dreams that she had as when she was going to be grown up, or the kid that was tired of not being picked for soccer or whatever. Like, I feel like he gets to those, gets in and out, and packages it better.
I don't agree with that. I think I think he does get to the heart of it, but to say that nothing's lost in the editing process just isn't true.
Well, I mean, something is lost. I'm saying there is less value in what is lost than what is retained.
Again, I don't necessarily agree with that either.
All right.
Because sometimes the important thing isn't the realization. It's the journey to get to that realization that is not only important to the reader, but could be important to other people out there who may have gone through the same thing or feel the same way.
I think this is your anti-Canadian bias coming out. That's what's going on.
How in the world am I anti-Canadian?
No, not at all. Not really.
I almost started to do the classic. I've got Canadian friends.
That's right. I've had 3 Canadians in my house. Dan is supremely optimistic and positive. That's the tone that he has on the show. He has a very traditional, we said, radio voice. He reminds me a lot of like an NPR host or something like that. But I feel like so often the NPR host voice, their natural tone, their normal tone is almost skepticism and like not pessimism necessarily, but close.
Yeah, I can get
it's a
that.
downbeat, and he's very upbeat.
Well, it's so you don't think I just believe anything that comes across my internet feed. This is the voice I'm going to use, so you know that I am serious about what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's almost like if I bring positivity to my voice, if I have a smile when I'm talking, then people won't take me seriously.
Yeah, but these events are these events are positive things, like they're celebrations.
Even the ones that talk about tragedy or sadness or whatever, it's about
triumphing and overcoming.
Indeed. So I love that part about Dan especially. Let's move to the production values. I thought it was very, very smooth. It actually is sort of a Canadian public radio show, I believe. It's been connected to radio there, and it has that feel. The production levels are high. There's music throughout pretty much mixed under it. How did you feel about that?
Okay, I'm going to say this, all right, because people tend to be sensitive anytime you say anything negative or untoward about a show that they love, and that's fine. They should.
Sure.
They're fans, and that's what they should do. But I'm going to put it this way. I like M&Ms, okay? Mm-hmm. I don't like the candy shell of an M&M. I think it's a terrible coating to have around that chocolate, because when I bite in slowly, which I like to do, the candy shell will splinter and I'll get little shards of candy shell hitting me in the gums, and it's unpleasant. Now, I'm not going to stop eating M&Ms because of it. I still like M&Ms. I don't like that part of M&Ms.
How do you feel about Reese's Pieces?
Same thing. Those little hard candy shells, they jab me in the gums.
I feel like the Reese's Pieces, to continue the metaphor and take it to its logical conclusion,
sure.
I feel like the Reese's Pieces candy shell does a better job flavor-wise of matching what you get inside the candy. And therefore, the consistency of the experience is better with Reese's Pieces than with M&M's. That's my own personal opinion and preference. And I'm feeling that for you, if you're me there, the Reese's Pieces of these choices is mortified for you.
No, I'm not making a choice between mortified or Grownups. The point is I like Grownups. I like the format. That's all fine. But the hard candy shell that keeps jabbing me in the gums are the ins and outs. They can be abrupt and jarring for me, and I don't really care for it. But I still like the show as a whole.
All right. What about the audio quality? It is a live recording.
Yep. Yes.
You get the audience in there, but I think that actually adds to the feeling.
And you're gonna. I mean, obviously, it's a live show. Everybody they're recording it as a live show. They know, so they're going to have to edit it and maybe tweak the audio to make it palatable. And if if it's not palatable, then they aren't going to put it in the show. you'd assume, because it's all very listenable.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is with the interviews, the follow-up interviews, most of those are in person. I heard a couple though that he did by phone, just because he couldn't get with the person while they were at the event or something. And to me, those were very high quality too. I've got issues with phone calls, but these all sound fine. Audio quality was never an issue for me on this podcast. Was it for you?
No.
There you go. All right, that's the audio quality, host likability, production values, and the content we've all talked about. Let's talk about some of our favorite moments. There were a bunch of really good ones in here. I listened to several episodes, 201, 204, 207, and then I went back and listened to 205, actually. A couple of my favorite moments off the top of my head. In episode 204, Nancy is writing a letter to her parents, and she begins the letter with, "Dear Mom and Dad, I hate it here at Brownie Camp." And then the whole rest of the letter, it is like the worst Charlie Brown, pessimistic, they said we could go swimming, but then again, I'm sure it'll rain tomorrow, so we won't be able to, or the camp counselors said that we might finish the week with an ice cream party, but then again, I'm sure it'll taste bad. I can't wait to come home. Please come and get me. That's how she ended the thing. There's just the overwhelming pessimism of a child. I appreciated that.
No, see, I like any other readings that was like, I hate my parents, and just was real calling their parents names, cussing their parents out in their journal or whatever, right? Because it kind of puts things in perspective. Like, I don't have kids yet. I want kids. And I know there's going to be a time where no matter what, that child is going to hate me at some point. Yeah. Just because they can't see the whole scope of everything, right?
Right.
And I've always thought, man, that's going to bum me out when that happens. But all these people seem to be like well-adjusted people.
Yeah.
Right?
They just had some hate in their heart at 14.
Yeah. So whenever I hear them read that and get the interview part with them and everything, I'm like, all right, my kid can hate me and they'll still turn out just fine.
Talking about the short-sighted nature of youth, in episode 207, there's this guy that had written a letter to, he was like a landlord and a boss. This guy moved like across the country with like a family friend or something and was both working for him and living in his house or something. Mm-hmm. Okay? He's like 17 or 18 years old at the time. He ran up an $800 phone bill while he was there working for him in long-distance charges and things like that, all right? This is him reading a letter that he had written to him explaining why he was not going to pay. And in fact, if justice was to be had, the man would owe the kid money. And he goes like point by point, all of the different things in their verbal agreement on what the nature of their relationship was going to be, that this guy didn't hold up to his bargain. But it's things like promised time off not given. Estimated value minimum $500. No, your time off doesn't have a monetary value.
He priced off his time.
Yeah, but not just all of his time. Like he priced things like, he said house sitting. Like I watched your location while you were gone 3 different weekends on business trips. No, you lived in his house for free while he was gone for 3 different business trips. Like this guy was a tenant of his, and he was also counting that as house sitting on 3 different locations and assigning dollar values.
How old was this when he wrote that?
He was like 17 or 18 years old, and this kid's like now in his 30s. He has never paid the guy back, by the way. He still has never sent him the $800. He expressed regret though, and he's like, in the back of my head, it's one of those things like someday I'll get a tax refund or something, and I'll write the guy $1,000 check and just, mail it off to him to make it square. Because it is one of those things I look back on and go, the errors of my youth. But I hope that he doesn't hold it against me.
Righteousness.
Yeah. I mean, I've been that guy. I've been that guy picking a fight with grown-ups, thinking about how wronged I am, and you realize, you were done a favor. And you were a jerk.
I've never been that guy.
Really?
Yeah. Ever.
All right, then. Well, the rest of us can.
I've been that way in friendships. But I've never been that way to
Let me tell you why it's okay that I stole your girlfriend, wrecked your car, and then you blamed it all on you. No.
I never wrecked his car. But yeah, it was always people around my old age. It's good to have righteous indignation on your side.
So that is a couple of my favorite moments, a couple of our favorite moments. It's time now to get this thing a rating. Grownups read things they wrote as kids. Again, you can find them online. Grownups read things they wrote as kids. .com. You can also find them on Twitter. The Twitter handle is
Please be grownups that read things.
No, it's GRTTWAK. GRTTWAK.
Okay.
Grit to whack. There you go. But anyway, what did you think about the show overall? We got to give it a rating. We give it earbuds in, so we can go half earbuds if we want to, but all the way up to 2. 2 is the best we can give a show each individually. Pitch? Sure.
Okay, so it's a live event where like these grown-ups come to the stage and they have like old journals or notebooks, right? And then they read it and you find out that it's how they felt when they were kids.
It's a terrible elevator pitch. Rate this show, sir.
A 1. It's a 1.
It's a one earbud for you. I'm going to give it a 1.5. I liked it very much. I am still subscribed to it. I wish they came to the States, and I said that and wrote that before I realized there was a show like it in the States. So I guess I can just go to Get Mortified if I want to hit it alive. I think the
closest one to us is probably Austin.
All right, then.
But here's the thing is, we could just do it in our own town.
Yeah, I think probably you can go to getmortified.com and even like set up your own live event.
Yeah, I think if you like, I think it's a fantastic. This is something that, while it's a 1 as a podcast, it may be a 1 or a 1.5 as a documentary. Like the idea, to be able to go to one of these events, I feel like is a 2. Like to be able to go and participate in an event or watching the event, I think it's an excellent show.
Well, you and I are both big fans of the idea of like continuing the storytelling tradition, and any way that we can do that and bring that back in the electrical age, I think is really cool. So anyway, there is our review. We gave it a total of 2.5 for Grownups Read Things They Wrote as Kids. We'll have links in the show notes too, where you can find that show and listen to more. Don't forget, this week you got another review coming. What's up next, Josh?
Guys,
Not guys, that's the name of the show.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's about 2 girls.
Yes.
And the guys, they
Sure, but it's the anti-slut-shaming podcast.
Yes, absolutely. And that's coming up with both explicit and non-explicit reviews available in your feed this week. Stay tuned and go to podonpod.com to find more. Guess what else you can find at podonpod.com, Josh?
Kidneys.
No, there are no kidneys there. There is merchandise.
We'd be making a lot more money if there were.
we might make more money selling kidneys. I think a different website would be better if we were trying to sell kidneys, though. No, we got T-shirts.
Yeah.
We got stickers.
Yeah.
We got iPhone cases. We got Samsung Galaxy cases.
Mugs.
We got mugs and travel mugs and many other things too. Art pouches, all sorts of cool stuff. Check out the full list by going to shop.podonpod.com. You can find it right there. The service is Redbubble, and thanks to them for setting us up. But you can order our logo. It's really cool. It's got Nixon wearing headphones, a big thumbs up from Nixon, and it says podonpod.com. We are always listening. Check it out at shop.podonpod.com. And we appreciate you.
Sometimes that's how I feel.
That's how you feel? We are always listening?
Oh, always listening.
Ask my wife. She says that's true.
Yeah.
All right. So check that out. Thanks to everybody who already has. And get your merch. Get your merch. Tell your friends. And thanks for checking out the show. All right. We'll be back sooner than you think, sooner than normal, with our review of Guys We F***ed. Until next time, we're your hosts.
I'm Josh.
I'm Joel. And this is the podcast. Pod on Pod is a proud member of the Procast Network, a Procreate production. Procreate is a community of artists in film, music, the digital arts, and the fine arts that helps them connect and collaborate on projects. You can find out more at teamprocreate.com. Also, be sure to check out one of our other great shows like Me and the Geek. Are you a geek? If the answer is yes, I've got just the show for you. If the answer is no, well, I might have the show to explain why you're wrong. meandthegeekpod.com is where you need to go. Visit us every week for a different conversation with a new geek and a peek into their own geeky world. You see, here at Me and the Geek, we believe that everyone is geeky about something. Find out what your geek is, and then let your geek flag fly. With Me and the Geek, on iTunes, in Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts now.
Our musical guest this week is We Are Kings and Queens.
Wish you well at the wishing well, where all your hopes and dreams slide down.
skies.